ask you something. When was the last time someone underestimated you? Maybe they spoke over you. In a room where your ideas deserved to be heard, maybe they passed you over for an opportunity you had clearly earned. Or maybe, and this one is the quietest kind of hurt, maybe you were the one doing the underestimating of yourself. Here is what most people never stop long enough to see. The traits that make you feel like you are falling behind are often the exact traits that signal rare, uncommon power. The problem isn't that you lack what it takes. The problem is no one taught you how to read your own strength. In this episode, we are going to change that. 10 signs, backed by Stoic philosophy, behavioral psychology, and the patterns of the world's most respected leaders, that reveal you are far more powerful than you have been giving yourself credit for. By the time we finish, you will not just see yourself differently, you will carry yourself differently. Let's begin. Sign 1. You feel things deeply, but you do not lead with emotion. There is a version of emotional control that looks like coldness, detachment, a kind of professional mask that people wear to seem unaffected. That is not what we are talking about here. What I am describing is something rarer. The person who can feel the sting of an unfair criticism. Notice the discomfort of a difficult room. Register the weight of a high-stakes conversation. And still respond from a place of deliberate calm. Not because they don't care, because they care too much to let the moment control them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He did not write that from a place of emotional emptiness. He wrote it as a man who ruled an empire, buried children, faced betrayal, and chose every time to respond rather than react. The capacity to feel deeply and still choose your response? That is not weakness dressed up. That is one of the rarest forms of executive power there is. Sign 2. You are comfortable sitting in silence while others rush to fill it. Watch what happens in most rooms when silence falls. People rush to fill it. They over-explain. They offer concessions they had not planned to make. They soften positions they intended to hold. Silence makes most people deeply uncomfortable. And that discomfort becomes leverage for whoever is willing to wait. But if you are someone who can sit in stillness, in a negotiation, in a difficult conversation, at a boardroom table, without anxiety, without the urge to perform, without scrambling to be liked, you hold something most people never develop: presence. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." The most commanding people in any room are rarely the loudest. They are the most deliberate. They speak when it matters. They are silent, when silence communicates more. If you have been told you are too quiet, or that you don't put yourself out there enough, consider this: the world will always try to train you into its noise. Staying grounded in your own rhythm is not shyness, it is authority. Sign 3. People tend to tell you things they don't tell others. You may not have noticed this, but think back. How often does someone, a colleague, a friend, even a stranger in a professional setting, lower their guard with you in a way they do not seem to with others? This happens for a reason. People can sense safety. They can sense judgment and its absence. When someone is with a person who listens without an agenda, without the need to one-up, without waiting for their turn to speak, something in them relaxes. They open. That is not a small thing. In leadership research, the ability to create psychological safety, the environment where people feel seen, heard, and unjudged, is consistently identified as one of the top differentiators between average managers and exceptional ones. You may carry this naturally, and if you do, it is a form of quiet power most people spend careers trying to develop and never quite reach. Sign 4. You have walked through something that should have broken you, and it didn't. Not everyone can say this. not because life has been kinder to them, but because many people have not yet been pushed to the point where they had to discover what was underneath. You have. And what you found, even if it scared you, even if the process was painful, is the beginning of a different kind of confidence. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of fate, not passive acceptance, not resignation. A radical willingness to take what came, extract what it was offering, and move forward. If you have been through difficulty and come out with your values intact, your purpose still clear, and your capacity for compassion still open, that is not ordinary. That is the profile of someone who leads, not from a title, but from depth. Sign 5. You rarely seek validation, before you act. Most people wait. They wait for someone to confirm their idea is good enough. They wait for the right credentials. They wait for the group consensus. And that waiting, though it feels safe, is often the reason their best ideas never leave the room. But there is a version of you, perhaps one you are still growing into, that has started to move from internal conviction rather than external applause. That starts before it feels ready. That publishes, pitches, leads, speaks, before it has all the evidence that it will be received well. Lao Tzu wrote, "When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you." The power was never outside you. The permission was never coming from the room. It was waiting. For you to stop waiting. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is loud. What I am describing is a quiet, settled certainty that you have something worth offering, and the discipline to offer it before you are guaranteed an audience. Sign 6. You think in systems, not just moments. When something goes wrong, your first instinct is to understand why, not just to react to what. This is rarer than it sounds. The majority of people operate at the level of the event. This happened, and I feel this way. Full stop. But you, if you are this kind of thinker, tend to pull back. You want to understand the pattern underneath the event, the dynamic underneath the conflict, the structure underneath the result. Behavioral scientists call this systems thinking. Executive coaches describe it as one of the most reliable markers of senior leadership potential. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself. It is due to your estimate of it. And this, you have the power to revoke at any moment. He was not just offering comfort, he was describing the habit of the strategic mind, the mind that steps back from the noise to ask what is actually going on here. Sign 7. You are willing to be misunderstood in the short term. This one costs something. There is a real discomfort in being the person who sees what others haven't yet seen, who takes a position before it's popular, who says the quiet thing out loud when everyone else is performing agreement. That discomfort is real, and it is not trivial. But the alternative, shrinking yourself into legibility, softening your ideas until they are acceptable, waiting until the consensus has already moved to the place you were standing 3 years ago. That is a cost too, and it is paid slowly, in the slow erosion of your own voice. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Not because being misunderstood is pleasant, but because growth, real growth, almost always looks like deviation before it looks like leadership. The people who moved industries, changed rooms, built lasting things, they were nearly always misunderstood first. Your willingness to stand in that space, even uncomfortably, is not a liability. It is a signal of where you are going. Sign 8. You hold yourself to a standard others can't see. This is the kind of integrity that is almost impossible to perform because it shows up not in how you present yourself publicly, but in what you do when the presentation is over. How carefully you prepare, when no one will know the difference. How honestly you report back, when underreporting would be undetectable. how fully you show up, even when showing up fully costs you something. The Stoics called this eudaimonia, flourishing that comes not from external reward, but from internal alignment. The sense, which cannot be faked and cannot be bought, that you are becoming the person you intended to become. There is a kind of quiet authority that comes from people who operate this way. You cannot always name it when you see it, but you feel it. There is something in the way they carry themselves that suggests the performance and the reality are the same thing. If your private standard and your public face are the same person, you are operating at a level that most people, despite their visible confidence, never reach. Sign 9. You know when to walk away and you do it without drama. This is not avoidance. Avoidance is leaving to escape discomfort. What I am describing is something different. The deliberate, values-based decision to stop investing energy where it is not producing growth, honesty, or mutual respect, and to do so quietly, without the announcement, without the performance of departure. Most people cannot do this. They stay too long in the wrong rooms, because leaving requires a certainty they don't have, or they leave loudly, because they need the exit to serve as a statement. Neither is power. Lao Tzu wrote, "Knowing when to stop prevents trouble." That sentence looks simple. It is not. Knowing when you have said enough, done enough, given enough, waited long enough. Knowing where the line is and respecting it before you cross into bitterness or burnout is one of the most sophisticated forms of emotional intelligence a person can develop. If you have learned to leave gracefully, to close chapters without catastrophizing them, to move forward without needing the last word, you are ahead of most people in the room. Sign 10. You are still becoming, and you are not ashamed of the distance you have left to travel. This is the one that quietly separates the truly powerful from the merely successful. Success can make people stop. It can calcify perspectives, close minds, create the illusion that arrival is final. But the most commanding, most lasting kind of authority belongs to people who remain genuinely, honestly open to growth, not as a performance, but as a practice. You are still asking questions, still sitting with discomfort rather than rushing to resolve it, still willing to be corrected, to be challenged, to discover you were holding something incorrectly, and put it down. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the ancient world at its largest reach, wrote privately, "Confine yourself to the present." Not because the future didn't matter, but because the only power you ever truly hold is in this moment, this choice, this version of yourself, and the willingness to keep showing up to that, honestly, deliberately, without pretending you have arrived, is the most powerful thing a person can do. Close. And there you have it. 10 signs that you carry more power than you have been naming. Not the loud kind of power, not the performance of it, the real kind, the kind that builds trust before it demands respect. That stays when things are hard. That chooses growth over comfort and peace over the need to prove. These signs are not a checklist you either pass or fail. They are a direction, a compass, and every time you choose one of them, even imperfectly, even slowly, you move closer to the version of yourself that knows, without needing anyone else to confirm it, exactly who you are. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to see their own strength more clearly, and drop a comment below. I would love to know. Which of these 10 signs did you most need to hear today? Thank you for being here. Keep growing, keep showing up, and until next time, thrive.